He splits traffic. Down the lane, spins on Horford, throws it up wild, no good. And the loose ball deflected to Paul with 3 on the shot clock. Over to Curry, catch and shoot 3. Got it from the right sideline. 10.6 to go. Warriors lead 130-126. How did he do that? He is a relocation sensation. And he put the night-night symbol with 10.6 to go. Curry hits 2, 3.4 to go. Holiday at midcourt fires a 3 at the buzzer. It misses, and the Golden State Warriors have won their 3rd game in a row. And they beat the team with the league's best record in overtime, 132-126. Stephen Curry, 33 points, and played a good chunk of this game with 5 fouls.
Oh, baby! We're going full acapella there. We don't need no music. All we need is Anthony Slater, our 95.7 Game Insider. As we say, good morning to Anthony, everybody out there getting off their graveyard shift, truck drivers, janitors, carpenters, Dub Nation, what is happening? It's me, it's Lubin, it's Anthony Slater right now. We'll get back to the phone calls in just a second as the Warriors rally from a 17-point deficit. And you heard Tim Roy right there on the call, the voice of the Golden State Warriors. Stephen Curry playing the entire 4th quarter in overtime with 5 fouls. You got the great games from TJD and JK. Chris Paul with a quietly good game, filling up the stat sheet. Clay's been hot the last 4. Heck, he's been hot in 14 in the last 14 games. So, Anthony, what a win for the Golden State Warriors. They were dead in the water, man, against the Boston Celtics, and they rallied there. And it's a lot to get into. But first, let's start with Stephen Curry. Playing that 4th quarter in overtime with 5 fouls, and he hits the night-night shot over Derek White. He saves his best for last with 20 points after halftime. The guy's just not slowing down. It's just a treat to watch every single night, Anthony.
Yeah, he actually hadn't been good for 6 quarters. However, obviously he had the streak broken in Portland. But I thought, not only the 5 fouls that missed some open threes, heading into that 4th, but he turned it on again. That's actually 2 of the last 3 4th quarters, right? The Brooklyn 4th quarter. And he pulled them to wins. And, they needed it at times, but it's also, isn't this kind of a reminder that, although the NBA season feels so long, like a little 3-game stretch can just turn the mood. I mean, you just, came on, yelling like the Niners that just won a playoff game. But they're 13-15, which is not good, as we know. But
right.
Wizards are 13-14. But Wizards Blazers coming up. If you get those 2, you're 15-14. You're back over 500. I know that's not necessarily the goal at the beginning of the season, but it is just a reminder. A little 3-game streak can change how things feel around the team.
No, it definitely changes the tenor of the attitude, right, and the mood of this basketball team, especially without Draymond Green. You're on it. You play Washington to Portland, as you mentioned. You get over 500, and then you get ready for a 5-game stretch where you see Denver, Miami, Dallas, Orlando, Denver. So you want to be feeling good going into those games, but they're also reestablishing home court advantage. And what you said about Steph there, 2 of the last 3 4th quarters, I brought that up last segment, gets Brooklyn scoring 12 straight when they blow the lead. Last night, he has the big 3-pointers as, for whatever reason, Boston just would not double him. They left Al Horford on him on the island, and that is night-night there. But reestablishing home court advantage while doing it with the youngsters. And it feels like Clay and Steph are really appreciating the likes of JK and TJD. Let's start with JK, because he was out of the rotation back on December 6th against the Portland Trail Blazers. Doesn't play. They fall behind by double digits. He plays the last 17 minutes, has an impact going 6-6, and now he's had 7 straight games scoring in double figures. He has the 17 points and 7 rebounds last night. But to me, Anthony, the big key for him was not only the individual defense, but it's the fact that he went through a game and played a game without fouling anybody. He finished the game with 0 fouls and only 1 turnover, so he's scoring up by the game.
Yeah, Steve Kerr loves that. He's probably using a highlighter in his post-game office. He's starting now, right? He seems to have an established starting spot that I don't think he's giving up anytime soon. It's interesting that Steve Kerr seems to be choosing between him and Wiggins, although they did start together to open the second half after Podziemski left. But, he even said it in pregame, typically when it comes down to closing lineups, especially if he wants to play, Steph, Clay, and Paul, which it seems like he does, it's going to be Wiggins or Kuminga. He went with Kuminga last night. I think part of that was, Wiggins was 2 of 11, I think, shooting. But I'm curious when it gets to a point where the default is Kuminga. It's regardless of how the two are playing, it still feels like the two previous games he went with Wiggins. I think Wiggins earned it in Portland, right, the way he played. But if that is the choice, it's going to be interesting to track. I'll say that because Kuminga's doing some stuff that, I think last night you're not seeing Wiggins get a pick six in overtime. I don't think, stuff like that. And it's part of the theme of this team right now where it just feels like at almost every spot there's a young guy, riding up the rear view mirror of a veteran right now. And obviously I'm sure we'll get to the center spot where suddenly that's really happening.
Anthony Slater here on the Morning Rush on 95.7 The Game, our 95.7 The Game insider who does a tremendous job with The Athletic, one of the best beat writers not only in this market but across the globe. He really does a great job covering this team. And to follow up on that with Jonathan Kuminga, he just looks like the better player right now than Andrew Wiggins. He looks stronger, he looks more physical, he looks faster, more athletic, and he's finishing at the rim. How about him just calling off Klay Thompson like, no, you just go to the top of the key. I'm going to have this dance with Jaylen Brown. I'm going to go in and dunk. He's been the better player, so I'm with you. I do wonder when Steve Kerr just gets to a point where he says, you know what, JK's one of our best five down the stretch. It feels like it's coming right now with the way Andrew Wiggins has been so inconsistent.
Yeah, almost regardless of night, although I will say, part of what I think Kerr is doing better, really since the Moody situation in Sacramento, right, which he criticized himself for, is adjusting night to night. And I know at times it can be too slow for the fan base or, it can be too trusting of a veteran, but it does at least feel like pretty much every night now, he will stay with his best, like whoever is playing best down the stretch, which it hadn't been. We'll see, necessarily how much that continues. But, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Kuminga, I think 7 and 9 on twos last night, and that wasn't against, the Wizards. That wasn't against the Nets. That was against, you mentioned going at Jaylen Brown, but you have Al Horford on the backside of the defense. Drew Holiday's out there. Derek White's out there. Jason Tatum. That's the best defensive team in basketball, I think, at least personnel-wise. And he just looked like an elite athlete within that. I thought, the Curry moonball, you guys played the audio, Tim Roy coming in on it. But, part of the story I wrote, part of that happens because if you rewatch the play, Kuminga's crashing in from the corner hard, and Jason Tatum's, desperately trying to hold him off. He can't even go get the rebound because he's just, trying to hold Kuminga off, so it gets tipped to Paul, who throws it over to Curry. But it's a lot of that. He had 7 rebounds last time. Another stat Steve Kerr would probably use a highlighter on. So a lot of good stuff from him. What you're not getting nearly as much, dud games from him. Even though he's not he's not a huge night every night, there's been very few of the games where it's did he do anything tonight?
Go ahead, Lovin.
Anthony, I want to talk about Trayce Jackson-Davis and just what we saw from him last night. Obviously, early on in the game, Jaylen Brown, he was eating whatever he wanted in the paint. Then Trayce comes in, and it seemed like it kind of changed the game in the paint a little bit. We've seen the Warriors really struggle down there a lot. Is it really as simple to say that he could be the answer for the Warriors in their struggles down low and in the paint going forward?
Well, I mean, he's going to play. I know Steve Kerr said that last night, and it'll probably be dependent on matchup. He's definitely still trusting of Looney. He made that clear again in postgame last night. And there are certain matchups I know he'll probably play Looney 20-plus minutes. Sacramento is a matchup, right? If they're facing Domantas Sabonis, he's going to want to have him on him.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, look, they're 28th in the league in block shots. I mean, we know their lack of rim protection. Chris Paul historically has always had a pick-and-roll dive big for a reason. That's how he likes to operate. He needs kind of a lob threat to be most effective. Klay Thompson, weirdly, is got a really nice connection with Trayce on the pick and roll. Have you guys noticed that?
Oh, yeah, especially in overtime. How about that drop off in overtime, Anthony?
Yeah, or maybe the funniest play of the day was, Steph had he commits the fifth foul, middle of the third. They're down 17 at the time. It felt like the game was over, right? You were Boston might be up 25 to start the fourth. And then Klay and Trayce do 3 straight pick and rolls that work. And one of them, which I thought was the funniest one, was pick and roll. Klay has a perfect pocket pass to draw the defense, and then Trayce, which by the way, he's a good passer. That's really important in the offense. He does a drop off to Corey Joseph, who's in the dunker spot. And I was that is about the weirdest. It was the action that you used to see with Steph to Draymond to Iguodala, but it was Klay to Trayce Jackson-Davis to Corey Joseph. And I was okay, I guess it's working. Leads down to 9 all of a sudden.
Is that the play Corey Joseph spun into the defense and banked it off the glass?
No, that actually came a little bit later.
No, that was a little bit later. Yeah, that's right. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, decent minutes from Corey Joseph.
Not bad. Not bad.
No, everyone's always looking good. But yeah, staying on with Trayce here, like.
You don't want to talk Corey Joseph? Fans are fired up. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we'll get to Corey Joseph at some point, I'm sure. But no, when it comes to Trayce, it's like again, a couple years ago we saw the Warriors draft a center, James Wiseman, where it never really panned out with him at all. And then I asked Bonte this question earlier, like when it comes to Trayce, it just seems like he's giving us everything that we ever really wanted, that we wanted out of James Wiseman. I'm curious, just what are you seeing from Trayce Jackson Davis that's like that's showing that he's able to kind of mesh into the system in a way that James Wiseman never was able to? Like, what really is the difference between these two that you're seeing?
3 college games and like 5,000 college games. Right?
So it really is just as simple as exactly college.
Hey, Slater, that's exactly what I started with. Just the experience and just the instincts, right? His instincts and his hands and his IQ is just so much better than Wiseman's. And I'm not even trying to throw shade at Wiseman.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't know about James Wiseman coming out of college. You saw like the elite physical tools, but there was no way to know. Trayce Jackson Davis, I mean, he's a finished product. And I understand the league didn't fall in love with him clearly, right? Because like some people had him maybe like a late first, early second round grade. Once you slip to the second round, I mean, you guys know who his agent is, right?
Who is his agent?
Name is James Dunleavy, brother of Mike Dunleavy.
Are you serious? So basically, he just did it. It's like when Mike Piazza got drafted by the Dodgers, right? Tommy Lasorda just kind of knew his pops. It's like, all right, I'm going to take your son.
Well, I'll just say this, and there's a reason that Trayce slipped to the second, there's a reason he slipped to 57. Once he's in the second rounders don't have guaranteed contracts. So that agents, and this is common in the league, agents try to maneuver them to a place where they're going to get a good opportunity. Mm-hmm. And the Warriors guaranteed, like he got a guaranteed deal from the Warriors. Yep. So, 2 years guaranteed, 4 years total, because the Warriors saw a polished center who could pass and fit into Steve Kerr's system and could help tomorrow, basically. And they decided, I don't know if you guys remember the maneuvering at the time, but this is right when the Chris Paul trade's going on. Mm-hmm. They basically replaced Patrick Baldwin Jr. With Trayce Jackson Davis. Both of them intriguing prospects in their own way, but the Warriors front office this summer decided they needed to get rookies who are, ready to help Steve Kerr now and help Steph Curry now. And they identified that in Trayce Jackson Davis. I think I do know, James Dunleavy being Trayce's agent certainly helped. And they were right. And, to your question, what do I see with him? I just see like a guy who knows how to play. Mm-hmm. And it's the passing. I know it's just one little play I mentioned, but the fact that he can get the ball in the dive, draw the defense, and just do a little hook around pass to the dunker spot. Yeah, you're right. James Wiseman wasn't doing that. Rookie Jonathan Kuminga wasn't doing that. A lot of bigs don't do that. He just feels the game, and then, the athleticism really helps this team, right? When's the last time you saw a Warrior center? Was it Andrew Bogut the last time you saw a center block a shot like that coming weak side?
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, Draymond Green has some great block shots, but he's a small ball 5. I mean, JaVale McGee at times, maybe, but no, it's probably been since Andrew Bogut. And the lane parted like the Red Sea. I mean, Jaylen Brown, it looked like he had a wide open dunk. And I'm watching the game with Festus in the studio, and he didn't even realize that it was a block shot. I'm like, wow, he just blocked that. Grabbed a rebound, yelled a little bit. It's like, wow, okay, young man. I see you out there, and he's going to earn more minutes, but I want to get to Klay Thompson.
By the way, Festus must have loved that one.
Oh, he loved it. He couldn't. Dude, Festus couldn't get enough of TJD. He's been waiting for a big like this to finish around the rim and block shots. It was hard to contain Festus. You would have thought he was on the team last night. No doubt, Festus Ezeli on Warriors pre- and post-game live. Talking to Anthony Slater, our 95.7 Game Insider. Let's get to Klay for a second. Klay Thompson. We know he had that interesting presser where Kawakami kind of pressed him there. And, he goes, what you want me to do, come off the bench? Well, the way he's playing, he's never going to come off the bench under Steve Kerr. But he didn't finish in that Phoenix game a couple weeks ago, and you thought, boy, he was not happy. You had the little nugget on our show, Anthony, about him not being happy about that. Well, since then, he's responded very well. The Clippers, the Brooklyn Nets, the Blazers, he's averaging over 27 a game since that moment. He's shooting over 50% from 3 and from the floor. Klay Thompson now, over his last 14, shooting 40% from 3 and scoring 20 a game. 4 straight 20-point nights for Klay. Now he's starting to come around, and I think that's a product due to the spacing on the floor. Having a JK, having a TJD, having guys who could penetrate and break down the defense. Don't forget about Pajemski there. Yeah, Klay Thompson's been benefiting from that, Anthony.
Yeah, I think the Pajemski one you kind of mentioned at the end, but him being in the starting lineup, I think, has really helped. Not only, like you said, with the spacing, but an extra ball handler, an extra ball mover. he gets it going in transition. And, Clay, he loves those like transition threes that kind of gets it going. But, Steve Kerr mentioned it last night. He's just taking smart shots.
Yep.
He also looks good, like bouncy, fresh. The legs look pretty good. Sometimes older players, and at this point I think we can categorize Klay Thompson as an older player, need part of the season, a good chunk of the season to get themselves in rhythm and in condition, and their legs feeling good on a nightly basis, every night, other night basis. And
right.
I just think he looks like good right now, and he's confident. And you could maybe say the benching helped. I don't think he'd admit that. But the 4 games you mentioned, 23 of 46 from 3. That's the 4 games since the benching.
Right.
And yeah, I mean it's huge. It changes them. I mean, they don't win last night if he doesn't hit major threes that just have to have it moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the fourth quarter, he hit 2 threes there, 114-107. Steph Curry gets doubled. He goes to the left wing. Boom, splash. You're down 4 there. Now, before we get you out of here, you were in L.A. last week after the announcement that Draymond Green was suspended indefinitely. Shams Charania, your partner over there at The Athletic, just reported on Monday that he's going to be out for the next 3 weeks at least, minimum. Dunleavy mentioned to you at UCLA when they were practicing, basically saying, no, these next 10 to 15 games are going to determine what this roster looks like moving forward. And I'm looking at Andrew Wiggins here. Is there a scenario where Andrew Wiggins, and I don't know his value, I don't know if teams are willing to take on that contract, 4 years plus a player option, but the way he's playing right now, could you see a situation in which Andrew Wiggins is the odd man out? Because you got a lot of players coming back. Gary Payton II, Draymond Green. And if Andrew Wiggins is not finishing and he's not being effective and Kuminga's playing so much better than him and being more consistent, is Andrew Wiggins' Warriors tenure on the line here over the next 10 to 20 games?
Well, I mean, I do think they are going to survey the trade market, and you wonder what that means. I mean, I will say this: I think Mike Dunleavy is hoping and believing that this roster will prove enough to him that they want to make more of an aggressive win now move. I do think Wiggins' contract, even though, like you said, there's still a long-term aspect to it, it's still one of the more tradable contracts considering age and position, right? 3-and-D wing, theoretically. I mean, 2 years ago, he was one of the best 3-and-D wings in basketball. And what is it like? It's 24, 25-ish million this year. That's, I mean, it's a lot to in the average human, but in the NBA, that's fine for a starting small forward. So yeah, I mean, you could probably utilize him potentially to go get different missing pieces that you feel like you might have. But at the same time, you don't just say, Kuminga's playing well, Gary Payton's coming back. There's no need for an extra wing in the in the NBA playoffs. Right. I mean, I think there are times, and you saw it starting the second half last night, play Wiggins and Kuminga together.
Yeah.
There's Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the other team. Joe Mazzulla is not just saying, hey, just need one of the two on the floor. So just because of what the playoffs are, I just don't think you give away, a guy that can theoretically guard a Tatum, guard a Luka, guard a, all the guys he guarded a couple years ago. He's got to play better, but and again, I do think he's will be one of the more available names that they might talk about, but I don't think it's necessarily a sure thing.
Yeah, that's a good point there. He did grab 7 rebounds as well yesterday, but obviously Kuminga got the minutes down the stretch. But the Warriors rallying from 17 points down. I thought the postgame show was going to be dead. Chris Paul hit some big shots at the end of the third quarter there, and quietly he had a big-time stat line. I know the shot was short, but 9 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds. We can talk about him a little bit later because he's another guy that a lot of fans are saying, well, what do you do with CP3? But last night, no turnovers with the 12 assists. Anthony, we're going to let you go. I know you got to get ready for this weekend. You got a big weekend. Wizards, Blazers, Cowboys, Dolphins Sunday.
Ooh, that's a big one. Cowboys, Dolphins, I'm fired up about. Dolphins favorites in that game, which surprised me. Can I say something on the Friday game quick?
Yeah. Jordan Poole.
I don't know if you guys have talked about it yet, but yeah, Jordan Poole. I actually talked to Jordan. He played in Sacramento, Monday?
Really?
Hit 8 threes up there, yeah. Chatted with him a little bit. Chatted with a few of the, like Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, Kevon Looney, Klay Thompson, just about Jordan's tenure with the Warriors. And obviously it ended in such a sideways way. And I think it's viewed in a little bit more of a sour light or a kind of a questionable light than if you just really think about it, and this is what those guys mostly talk to me about. I mean, 28th overall pick, played 4 years here, vital to the title.
No doubt.
The stamp of a title, which was that 4th one in Boston, go through that playoff run. He had 7 or 8 just monster games.
He did.
yeah, they just don't win that title without him. And like, so that right there is like, to me, stamps you as you could say Warriors legend, really, in some ways, or however you want. Like, he was major in that, and I just that should probably be remembered more than what the fourth year was.
Man, I was going to let you go here. Now I got to ask, what's his temperament like? How's he feel about the Warriors in that tenure there?
Yeah, I mean, he's still a little bit hesitant to discuss much. I mean, he still talks about, like, he's still really good friends with Looney, right? The Milwaukee connection.
Mm-hmm.
Wiggins, he has the same agent as he's always been close with. He's very appreciative of his time watching Steph and Clay, just like learning from them, right? As a guy who views himself as, a quick trigger shooter, that, scorer. Doesn't really mention Draymond, won't really answer questions about Draymond. Which,
how could you blame him?
Yeah. He kind of joked afterwards, because I did ask a couple of, you would call them more uncomfortable questions, like, hey, Marshawn Lynch style on that one. He kind of likes, but that's how he's always been, and that's fine. Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, I respect how he's handled it. Like, he's never talked about that situation and like almost refuses to. And you know what? Like, that part of that's like, he just doesn't want the headlines. He doesn't want the conversation around it. It's too hard to ignore. We're going to obviously talk about it. He knows that. He's been respectful of that, but he just doesn't want to review that time. I asked him, if like, is he somewhat upset about how that was all handled? And he just was like, I've honestly never thought about it. And you're like, I know you have, but I respect you not, he wanting to have some like deep, long discussion about it. Right. So what's his temperament? And in some ways I do think the other thing is, I think he's happy where he was sent. He's been given a chance. It's not necessarily going well right now. They're 4-22. I think that was predictable. But he's shooting better. He had 28 the other night, hit 8 threes. So it's an interesting time for him. The other thing, and multiple people mentioned this, and this is why they view it as a success story, he got paid. He was a 28th overall pick that was making $1-2 million his first few years. He's now making $123 million over 4 years, and he's been given the keys to a team, and we'll see if that works out.
I got to catch up on your stories, man. I forgot all about that money because I did watch the game against Sacramento, but that's very, very interesting. And you know what, Dub Nation? I know they're going to show love to Jordan Poole because he is a champion. And you're right, he was vital to that playoff run. I think people forget about that. He was dynamic during that playoff run. His first ever postseason. How many guys we see struggle in their first ever postseason? For him to do what he did and help win the championship, I think he deserves the love. And I think Dub Nation will have the video tribute, and they'll give him a standing ovation Friday night when the Wizards come to town. They have only won one game in the month of December. They can't get a win to save their life. But Anthony, thanks so much for the time. We'll look for that story there, and we'll see you Friday night at Chase Center.
All right, fellas.
Anytime. Anthony Slater, one of the best in the business, if not the best.